This is the Tissot Gentleman Ice Blue, which to me looks remarkably Tiffany blue, to be honest. And today we're talking about all the specs that you need to know, as well as if it's worth your money. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And today we're talking about Tissot. I love Tissot. I've got a Tissot PRX. And actually, I think that this Tissot Gentleman is better quality than the PRX. So right off the bat, let's talk about the price. This comes in at £800, whereas the PRX comes in at £640. That is as of today, because obviously incrementally the watch brands have price increases. But that is the price of this watch. Is it too expensive? Is it too cheap? Let's find out. This model comes in at 40 millimeters in diameter, which is pretty damn good sizing, especially because it has kind of a limited bezel, and this limited bezel is actually in polished steel, so that polished steel kind of blends in with the dial a little bit more, and it makes the dial look bigger than it actually is. Basically what I'm saying there is if they'd made this a 41 or 42, it would look just too damn big on the wrist, but because they've made it a 40, it looks pretty good for my 6.5 inch wrists. Now, to add that little bit of flair to this watch, they've actually made the thickness pretty damn accessible to all shapes and sizes of wrists. It comes in, and I did measure this earlier, it comes in at roughly 11.5 millimeters in thickness, which is pretty damn incredible. Now, this watch does come in 316L stainless steel and actually has quite a lot of heft to it for being a little bit more of a dainty watch when it comes to the head and the case of this watch. So let's get this on the scales and see exactly how much it weighs. So this watch, no links removed, comes in at roughly 167 grams. When we look at the head and the bracelet of this watch, we can see that it has a combination of polished and brushed. And that polished and brushed combination makes this watch look so much more dressy rather than sporty. I would actually say that this and the PRX are polar opposites in terms of the markets that they want to hit. This looks quite similar to a Grand Seiko Elegance, whereas the PRX looks quite similar to an AP Royal Oak. One is sporty and one is dressy. This is definitely the dressy alternative. But my question then lies in, why is the dressy alternative more expensive than the sporty popular model? That's what I want to uncover. The bezel, or the limited bezel on this watch, is polished. Now that polished is absolutely beautiful when reflecting it in the light and also makes that face look a little bit bigger. I would actually say this looks more like a 41 when on the wrist just because of that bezel and that face. But here's the kicker when it comes to dress watches in general, actually. When it comes to watches that use polished steel. Polished steel, in my eyes, shows scratches so much more than brushed. It just really draws your eye to those scratches. So be careful when wearing this watch, and it's definitely not a sporty watch to wear every day. It's more of a suit and tie watch, I would say. The bracelet on this watch has a polished central link and then two brushed links on the outside. And actually, it tapers a little bit, but not very much. It actually remains quite thick the whole way round, which gives it more of a masculine feel to me. It has a butterfly clasp at the end, which looks great, feels great. However, my one thing about butterfly clasps is sometimes on certain watches, you put one side of the butterfly clasp down and you can't put the other side down. Now, to me, that's a design flaw, but this doesn't have it. It's absolutely perfect. You can put whichever side you want first down and it doesn't make a difference, which is, I guess, pretty refreshing to me, actually. When we look at the price of this model coming in at £800, that polished and brushed feel actually adds a little bit to the price. That's partially why it's that little bit more expensive, because that is an extra step in the process. When we look at the PRX, it is predominantly brushed with very, very little to no polished on it. So that polished steel is probably why it's that little bit more expensive, not to mention some other details that we'll go over. The crown of this watch has the Tissot T stamped on, well, the crown, and it also has quite nice teeth. However, I would say it does get a little bit tough to turn at points. That's just an observation. It's not grippy enough. The teeth aren't deep enough, I would say. They're nice, and they're probably kind of equivalent to what you're paying for this watch. However, they could be a little bit more notched to me. Jumping into the dial of this watch, before we get into the movement, and also 3 loves and 3 changes about this watch, it's important to say that the dial is so strikingly beautiful that it can only really properly be seen on the Chisholm Hunter website, where we're official stockists of Tissot watches. Head to chisholmhunter.co.uk if you want to see this on your wrist digitally. Anyway, this comes in a Tiffany blue color, which of course they've called ice blue because they don't want a lawsuit on their hands. Actually, that goes across the board. I mean, pretty much everyone's using the Tiffany blue color, but calling it something different. That Tiffany blue dial has a sun ray pattern. So actually, depending on how you hold this watch in the light, it kind of swivels and turns and has different shades of blue going through it. It is quite nice, and it does deserve to be seen in person. I would definitely say that. And actually, I'm much more of a fan of this dial than the PRX. The PRX kind of looks like it's been stamped but more mass-produced. I would say that the finishing overall on this watch just looks more. There's just slight details, slight niggles, slight things on the PRX that I've noticed over the years. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the PRX. I thought it was brilliant and genius from Tissot. However, there definitely is quality differences between this and that model. Before I forget, you actually have a quick release functionality on the bracelet just here. It's pretty easy to use, pretty damn good. And again, there's something about the bracelet on this watch that just, it feels a little bit more premium. It's almost as if the finishing's just that little bit higher. It's like a little bit less mass-produced. This watch has sapphire crystal glass, which is pretty standard amongst all watches over, I'm going to say £300 to £400 now. So that's not anything substantial, but it does have anti-reflective coating on there as well, which is a nice little touch. I wouldn't say it's as good as Omega's anti-reflective coating, but it's still pretty good for the price. The hands and the indices of this watch come in silver, and actually they kind of look quite sharp to look at. It honestly looks like, obviously the finishing's not there, and I'm not comparing this brand to Grand Seiko in any way, because Grand Seiko is genuine luxury, whereas this is more mass-produced luxury. It's still luxury, and it's still expensive, but it's just more mass-produced than, let's say, Grand Seiko. But it looks kind of Grand Seiko-esque with those sharp kind of corners and polished metal, polished silver, and it looks great. The only thing I would say, however, on this dial, the Tiffany blue, or ice blue, it could perhaps be perceived as a little bit harder to read because it's quite a bright metal on a bright dial. That's something that goes across the industry, though. It's not just this specific watch. And there's also green variants, blue variants, black variants. There's tons of other variants you can choose of this model. The date window is at the 3 o'clock mark, very similar to the PRX, and it looks great. I like the little border that they have around it of kind of polished material, polished metal, kind of guiding your eye into the center of that date. However, I do wish it was at 6 o'clock. That's just a me thing, though. That's not something that you guys need to follow in any way. It's just personal preference. And now we get onto the movement before going on to 3 things that I love and 3 things that I'd change. And then we'll get onto the price and whether it's worth it. The movement on this model is visible through the open caseback, which I absolutely love. I mean, why wouldn't you want to see the beating heart, the engine of your watch? The movement is a Powermatic 80 movement, which is fully automatic with 80 hours of power. And it comes in at 25.6 mil in diameter. And now we get to 3 loves and 3 changes that I would make to this watch. Okay, let's begin with the changes because that's where we normally start. So in terms of changes, why not strip away that 3 o'clock date window? Why not just get rid of it in total? I mean, do you guys ever actually, that's a silly question, you probably do use your date windows. I'm kind of weird because I don't use it that much. I would just prefer it taken away. It'd be cleaner to me. Then I would get rid of this butterfly clasp. And actually, I would put the bracelet, the bracelet obviously in the Longines GMT is a lot more expensive. Let's say I'd put the clasp that's on the Longines GMT, the new Longines GMT on this watch, which is a deployment clasp with a safety latch, which looks absolutely fantastic. And you know what? I don't have a third change to make to this watch today. And that's weird for me because normally I'm a really big critic of watches. But actually, it's just really damn good for the money. Now, 3 loves of this watch. Well, I mean, the sizing is absolutely phenomenal. 11.5 mil in thickness and 40 mil in diameter. That's perfect for my wrists. Legitimately perfect for my wrists. Tiffany blue as the color, or ice blue. I love that color. And I'm fully on board that hype train. I don't really care that it's a hype train. I just love that Tiffany blue color. And thirdly, I actually enjoy the polished nature of this watch. Within my collection, I tend to steer away from dress watches pretty much all the time, apart from my Grand Seiko, that's the exception. But I do need to look at more polished watches. I feel like I'm just maybe a bit scared, a bit nervous of them, but it's not a watch thing. It's not that they don't look great, it's just a me thing. But the question is this watch worth the money? And it's a tricky question. I mean, it kind of hits a weird price segment. It hits £800, which is close enough to that grand mark where it's almost entering Longines territory. It's almost entering Tag territory. I mean, the quartz models, but still Tag and Longines models, or maybe a cheaper Oris as well. You are getting to these very premium, expensive watches within this budget. Now, yes, obviously it's cheaper, and obviously it has an automatic movement, but it's still an ETA movement, which doesn't mean it's bad, by the way. I've not got anything against ETA movements. I think this has definitely been upgraded. There's definitely upgrades to the PRX, and I'm not comparing these two because they're non-comparable. However, there's definitely quality differences between the two. And yes, I love the fact it's dress watch. Yes, I love where they're going with this model. I love the ETA movement. I love the Powermatic 80 movement. It's a powerhouse of the movement. I think it is worth the money. However, if you had that extra £200, if you had that extra £300, I would go for a Longines. And on that note, thank you guys so much for watching this Chisholm Hunter video. My name is Harrison, as always. If you enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button. I'd really, really appreciate that. Or head to our Instagram, Chisholm Hunter Watches, give us a follow. And that's it. I'll see you next time.